Hey, I'm glad you are here. In this story, trust is a moving target, and the cost of doing the right thing is never small. Keep listening, because once it starts, it does not let go. Let's begin. On the outer rim, near Kestrel 9, Mara Vance kept her eyes on the forward glass and her hands light on the guidance yoke. She wore the patch of Rim War Transit Security, which was the only story the Concordia Council needed to see. Her assignment sounded simple when it was handed down. Escort the Vesper courier shuttle through the checkpoint lanes and deliver it to a neutral transfer dock before the next patrol rotation. It stopped being simple the moment the shuttle's hull began to run hot. The ceramic ablata mantle was the ship's outer heat layer, the part that takes the burn so the cabin does not. Think of it like the protective coating on a frying pan, and once it flakes off, everything under it overheats fast. It mattered because without it, the shuttle could cook itself from the outside in, and it would happen within about 1 hour at their current load. Mara did not say that out loud. She kept her voice calm because panic was contagious in a tight cabin. Lysa Kade sat strapped into the second seat, hands folded to keep from shaking. Lysa's travel file had called her a civilian courier with fragile cargo, but Mara had already seen the small tells that did not match the paperwork. The console displayed a line that read, "Mantle delamination progressing." Another line followed with a rising temperature bar and a warning that their cooling budget was narrowing. Mara needed to get through the lane, keep the shuttle from cooking, and keep the passenger alive long enough to hand off at the transfer point. She also had to do it without letting Concordia enforcement take an interest, because once they did, there was no polite ending. Mara eased the shuttle into Epsilon Rim Lane, where the traffic lights were sparse and the patrol paths overlapped like fishing nets. The radio cracked with a measured voice that tried to sound routine. Vesper Courier Shuttle, reduce speed and hold for inspection. Mara checked the transponder tags and the lane markers, then replied in the same practice calm. Rim War Transit Security Escort, clearance packet already filed. We are heat, limited and requesting a pass-through. A pause stretched long enough for Mara to picture someone watching her thermal signature climb. Then a reply came back sharper. Hold position. A Helix interdiction wing unit is inbound to verify your cargo and passenger. That was the first clear name of the other side. Helix interdiction wing did not chase civilians for sport. Mara glanced at the heat readout, then at the distance timer to the transfer dock. Both numbers were moving in the wrong direction, and she could not fix both at once. "Lysa, listen to me," Mara said, keeping her tone low and even. "I'm going to take a different route, and your job is to stay strapped in and breathe slow." Lysa swallowed. "Are they going to board us?" "Not if I can keep them behind us," Mara said. Mara rolled the shuttle slightly, just enough to slip into the shadow of a service buoy. She did it for one reason, because if Helix was coming, she needed a head start before their interceptor arrived and pinned her in open space. The console displayed a line that read cooling margin dropping. The cabin did not smell like smoke yet, but Mara could feel the warmth through the seat frame, like a heater turned too high in a small room. Mara set a course that cut across an unlit segment of the lane. She was not running for freedom, she was running for time. The interceptor arrived like a blade sliding out of sleeve. It was close enough that Mara could see the shape of its nose and the quick, controlled corrections of its thrusters as it matched her vector. The radio voice returned, now backed by a second signal that carried the authority of Concordia enforcement. "Escort craft, cut engines, and prepare to be tethered." Mara did not argue, because arguing burned time and invited conversation. She spoke once, more for herself than for anyone else. "I am not stopping," she said. Lysa turned her head toward Mara, eyes wide. "Why are they doing this to us?" Mara kept her focus on the intercept geometry. "Because they think you're worth the trouble, and because they want to scare anyone who tries this lane again." The interceptor edged closer, then flared a pair of lights that painted the shuttle's hull. Mara knew what came next, a docking clamp, or a guided line, something that made escape harder without firing a shot. She moved first. Mara fired a thermal chaff pod, a canister designed to burst into hot glitter that looked like a dozen engines in a cloud. It was not a weapon so much as a lie, and it bought a few seconds when the interceptor's tracking tried to choose the real target. The shuttle lurched as the guidance system fought her manual input, but Mara kept her grip steady and steered through the false heat cloud, using it to mask a tight turn. The interceptor overshot by a fraction, then corrected fast. The console displayed a line that read, "Mantle, shedding, accelerating." A tiny vibration ran through the hull like sand hitting a metal sheet, which meant the outer layer was coming off in pieces. Mara spoke again, not to the enemy, but to the problem in front of her. "We have a window. We take it, or we die out here," Mara said. The radio barked a final warning. "You are refusing lawful inspection. Your escort status is revoked." Mara pushed the shuttle harder than the ceramic layer wanted. They cleared the lane boundary and dropped into a pocket of darker space, where debris fields from old construction projects still drifted. Mara aimed for them because debris forced close pursuit to slow down, and slow was the one thing Helix did not want. The interceptor followed anyway. Lysa's fingers tightened around her harness strap until her knuckles blanched. Mara could hear her breathing now, too fast and too shallow, like someone trying not to cry. "Lysa," Mara said, forcing her voice to stay flat. "You need to tell me one thing. Why are they hunting you?" Lysa stared at the forward glass, then at the heat warning, then back at Mara as if measuring whether honesty would get her killed faster. "Because I saw what they did." Mara did not press with 10 questions. She asked for the one detail that changed the terrain. "What did you see?" Mara asked. Lysa's voice shook, but her words were clear. "A massacre that never happened the way they reported it. I was there when they staged it. They needed bodies for a story, and they needed that story to sell the Concordia peace plan," Lysa said. Mara felt the pieces click into place with cold precision. This was not about contraband or a missing tax stamp. This was about control. Mara's mouth tightened. "Do you have proof?" Lysa nodded once. "A recorder core. It is not in the open. It is locked to my biometric tag." That was enough. It meant Lysa was not just a passenger. She was a key. Mara checked the cooling numbers again and made a decision that cost her something she did not want to lose. She reached down to the emergency panel and popped the latch. Lysa flinched. "What are you doing?" "I'm buying you minutes," Mara said. "It will make the ship harder to save later." Mara pulled the cryo-sync cooling module free, an emergency cooling block that trades stored cold for a little more time. The shuttle surged, but the cabin fans changed pitch, and the temperature inside rose a little faster, like a warning breath on the back of the neck. The console displayed a line that read, "Cryo, reserve depleted." Another line appeared beneath it that read, "Estimated survival window reduced." The interceptor closed the gap again, now more cautious after the chaff trick. A new ping hit Mara's panel, subtle and clean, like a fingerprint pressed on a glass. Mara recognized it at once. A remote tag, the kind hunters use to track a target through noise and debris without speaking another word. Lysa saw Mara's eyes narrow. "What was that?" "A mark," Mara said. "They want us lit up so the next net is tighter." Mara adjusted her course toward a dim arc ahead, the broken curve of an old structure that had been left to drift. She chose it for a simple reason, because if she could not outrun Helix, she could force them to chase her somewhere they could not use their ship the way they liked. She set the approach vector and spoke in the same calm tone she used when giving routine safety advice. "We're going to dock at that ring. It will be rough, but it will keep us alive." Lysa's voice came out small. And after that, Mara did not promise comfort. She promised direction. "After that," Mara said, "we run on foot. We stay ahead of the next trap, and we get your proof to a relay that cannot be silenced." The shuttle shook as the first flakes of the ceramic layer tore free in the cabin lights. Dim for a heartbeat, Mara kept her hands steady and her eyes forward, while behind them Helix held position, patient as a predator that knew time was on its side. Mara had one outcome to force now. She had to get Lysa Kade off the open lane and into cover before the heat and the chase closed at the same time. She kept the Vesper courier shuttle angled toward a dim arc ahead, the broken curve of Acheron ring drifting like a dead halo. If she could dock there, she could force Helix Interdiction Wing to switch from clean space pursuit to close work, and close work always created mistakes. How far? Lysa asked, voice tight. Close enough to try, Mara said. Too far to waste time talking. The console displayed a line that read, Survival Window Reduced. Mara did not need the numbers to understand what that meant, because the cabin air already felt warmer against her cheeks. Helix stayed behind them on purpose. Mara could feel it in the way the interceptor held distance, not rushing and not firing, only shaping her path like a shepherd with a knife. The radio hissed, then snapped into a clear channel. Escort craft, cut thrust, and prepare for controlled capture. Mara did not answer. She moved, because every reply gave them a second to measure her, and every second was heat. She thumbed the last thermal chaff pod and watched the indicator go green. The pod was a dirty trick in a clean world, a burst of hot fragments that made tracking hesitate. Mara released it, then rolled the shuttle hard to the right. The cabin shook as the guidance system fought her, and Lysa gripped the harness with both hands. You said they would stay behind us? Lysa said, breath catching as the turn pinned her in the seat. They will, Mara replied. They just want me tired first. The interceptor surged into the chaff cloud, then peeled away at the last instant. It did not lose them, but it had to choose a line, and choosing a line gave Mara a corner. Mara took that corner and cut through a debris band, old construction grit scattered like gravel. She did it to slow Helix down without giving them a clean excuse to shoot. The shuttle trembled again, a faint shiver through the floor. Mara knew the mantle was still, shedding in flakes, and every vibration was another piece coming loose. The console displayed a line that read, Outer layer temperature rising. Beneath it, the bar climbed toward a red threshold that Mara refused to name out loud. Mara kept her voice steady for Lysa's sake. When I tell you, duck your head and keep your mouth closed. Why? Lysa asked, words squeezed between quick breaths. Because the ship might shudder, Mara said. I do not need you biting your tongue. The interceptor made its next move. It did not fire a weapon. It slid into the exact spot where its shadow fell across the shuttle's path, and its light swept the hull like a search beam. Mara understood the intention. Helix wanted her to brake or to veer, because either choice would cost her. Mara chose a third option. She pushed forward. The shuttle lurched as she drove it through the narrow gap between debris and empty space. Metal pinged lightly against the hull, small impacts that sounded harmless but carried weight in Mara's mind. Lysa's breath turned ragged. Are we going to make it? We're going to keep moving, Mara said. That is the only promise that matters. The interceptor fell back half a ship length, not because it had to, but because it chose to. Mara watched it and felt something colder than fear settle into her chest. Helix was not trying to catch them fast. Helix was trying to make them run out of time. The radio spoke again, smoother now, almost polite. Rimward escort, you have a corridor. Take it and end this without damage. Mara stared at the lane markers ahead. The region was labeled in her navigation overlay as Black Glass Sector, a pocket of drifting junk and electromagnetic haze. Lysa looked from the glass to Mara. They are letting us go. They are letting me choose how I lose, Mara said. Black Glass Sector was not a myth. Pilots used it when they wanted to hide from routine scans, but it came with a cost because the haze made sensors unreliable. Mara did not need to explain it in technical terms. She understood it the same way a driver understands fog, because you can see the headlights, but you do not see the ditch until you are in it. Mara eased the shuttle into the edge of the haze. If she stayed in clean space, Helix could tether them cleanly, and if she went into black glass, Helix would have to follow blind. The cabin lights flickered once as the shuttle crossed the boundary. The console displayed a line that read, Signal noise increasing. Lysa swallowed. What does that mean? It means the ship will lie to me, Mara said. So I will fly by what I can trust. What can you trust? Lysa asked. Distance and momentum, Mara said. And the ring. The ring does not move fast. Inside the haze, the stars dulled and the lane markers turned fuzzy. Mara reduced the shuttle's reliance on automated cues and watched the physical world instead, the shifting brightness of debris, and the subtle change in the ring's silhouette. Helix followed, but not close. The interceptor's lights blinked in and out through the fog like a predator's eyes in tall grass. The shuttle shuddered again, stronger this time. Heat was building under the skin of the ship, and Mara could almost taste it. The console displayed a line that read, "Mantle delamination worsening." Mara had already accepted the truth, because every second in this haze bought distance and fed the heat. Lysa's voice dropped to a whisper. "If we cannot trust the sensors, how do we not crash?" "We do not get fancy," Mara said. "We keep one thing in front of us and one plan in our heads." A bright flare blinked behind them. Helix had fired something, not a missile and not a beam, just a pulse that made the haze ripple. Mara felt the shuttle's systems hesitate, as if the ship had blinked. The ring's outline jumped on her display, and she knew it was a trick of noise. Mara clenched her jaw and forced her eyes back to the real view. The ring was still there, still the same shape against the dark, still the only anchor that mattered. "Hold on," Mara said. Lysa nodded quickly, eyes wide, still strapped tight. Mara pushed the shuttle forward, using the last clean line she could see, and the haze swallowed them deeper. Behind them, Helix waited for one wrong correction. The channel opened with a tone that sounded official, but not dramatic. The voice was measured, genderless in its calm, the kind that made people obey without thinking. "This is Concordia Enforcement Authority. Rimward Transit Security Escort. You are ordered to return to inspection space." Mara kept her eyes on the ring. She answered once, only to define the boundaries of reality. "We are heat limited and in a hazardous corridor," Mara said. "I am proceeding to emergency shelter." The reply was immediate. "You are escorting a protected witness. Deliver Lysa Kade to Helix Interdiction Wing, and you will be permitted to depart the sector." Lysa's throat tightened. Mara heard it, a small sound that told her everything about Lysa's fear. "Do not speak," Mara said softly. Lysa nodded and swallowed the words that wanted to come out. Mara understood what Concordia was doing. They were offering mercy in exchange for betrayal, and they were doing it on an open channel so it sounded lawful, clean, inevitable. The voice continued, still calm. "Refusal will be treated as hostile interference. You will be held accountable for all consequences." Mara did not debate definitions. She kept it human and simple. "You stage a massacre," Mara said. "You do not get to talk to me about consequences." There was a pause, and in that pause Mara felt the pressure change. The authority did not need to convince her. It only needed to justify what Helix would do next. The reply came back colder. "Last warning. Release the witness." Mara ended the conversation by cutting the channel. She could not stop them from broadcasting, but she could stop herself from listening. Lysa finally spoke, voice thin. "They use my name like it was a crime. They use it like a leash," Mara said. "I'm not handing you over." Lysa stared at Mara. "Why?" Mara kept the shuttle on course and chose her words carefully. "Because if they get you, they get your proof," she said. "And then they own the story forever." The console displayed a line that read, "Thermal warning escalating." The bar crept closer to the red threshold. Mara felt the rings pull in her gut now, not gravity, but urgency. She needed metal under her boots and walls that broke lines of sight. The interceptor's lights flashed again through the haze, closer than before. Helix had taken the cue from Concordia and tightened the net. Mara did not look back. She aimed for Acheron Ring, and she committed. Acheron Ring filled the forward glass as they broke out of the worst of black glass haze. It was huge and broken, a skeletal circle width, missing panels and dark gaps where old corridors had vented to space. Mara could see docking arms that no longer moved and lights that did not blink. It was a place built for workers once, then abandoned when the economics changed and the council moved on. "That is the ring?" Lysa asked. "Yes," Mara said. "And it is our shelter." The console displayed a line that read, "Outer temperature critical." The warning tone was not loud, but it was steady like a pulse in the ear. Mara lowered the shuttle's speed in a controlled glide. She could not brake hard because braking dumped heat into the wrong places, and the mantle did not have the strength to take it. Helix emerged behind them, clean and sharp now that the haze was thinner. The interceptor did not fire. It held position and let the countdown do the work. "They're not stopping us," Lysa said. "They're watching us fail," Mara replied. Mara aligned the shuttle with a docking collar that looked intact enough to try. She chose it because it sat near a visible interior hatch, and she needed a quick path from cockpit to cover. The shuttle's skin creaked as it cooled unevenly in the ring's shadow. The sound was quiet but wrong, like a frozen door flexing. Mara spoke to Lysa, voice flat and practical. "When we dock, you follow me." "No questions," she said. "If I pull you down, you go down." Lysa nodded fast. "Okay." Mara extended the docking probe. The shuttle bumped the collar, scraped, then settled into a shaky lock that would not hold long under stress. The console displayed a line that read "Dock interface unstable." Another line followed with a warning about remaining heat tolerance. Mara did not wait for the system to approve. She popped her harness, grabbed a small emergency pack, and moved toward the rear hatch. Lysa hesitated, eyes locked on the interceptor outside. It hung there in the dark, not a monster and not a myth, just a machine controlled by people who believed they were righteous. "It is right there," Lysa said. "It cannot walk through a corridor as fast as we can," Mara said. "Not yet." Mara keyed the hatch release. The door opened with a resistant groan, as if the metal did not want to move anymore. Heat rolled in from the shuttle's skin. A warm breath that made Mara's scalp prickle. She did not have the luxury of fear, only the discipline to keep moving. She stepped into the docking collar and felt the vibration under her boots. The ring was not dead. It was simply quiet, like an old building after business hours. Lysa followed, clutching a compact case to her chest. Mara did not ask what was inside, because she already knew, and because asking would slow them down. Behind them, the shuttle gave a small shudder, like a tired animal shifting its weight. Mara understood the message without looking back. Mara grabbed the manual wheel on the inner hatch and spun it. The seal cracked with a hiss, and the air beyond smelled stale, metallic, and cold. She pulled the hatch open and stepped into Acheron Ring. Then she looked down the dark hallway and made the decision without drama. "Move," Mara said, and Lysa moved with her. Inside Acheron Ring, Mara needed distance from Helix Interdiction Wing and a path that kept Lysa breathing. She also needed a maintenance route pointing toward Freeband Relay Corridor before anyone could settle in at the hatch. The hallway beyond the hatch was narrow and dark, with frost clinging to the seams like old salt. The ring smelled like cold metal and stale air, the kind that had not moved in a long time. Mara moved first because hesitation fed fear. She kept one hand on the wall for balance and the other close enough to Lysa's elbow to pull her forward if Lysa froze. "Stay close," Mara said. "If you cannot see my shoulder, you are too far back." Lysa nodded, eyes scanning the shadows. "Is this place safe?" "It is safer than open space," Mara said. "That is not the same thing as safe." Mara did not trust the maps. The ring's internal markers were dead and the lighting was patchy, but the architecture told its own story if you knew how to read it. Mara spotted a faded stripe along the wall, an old directional band used by workers. It bent left toward a service spine, and service spines usually led to junctions with emergency supplies. She turned left because a straight hallway was a shooting lane. Mara did not intend to give anyone that advantage if Helix came inside. The ring responded to their footsteps with a soft creak, as if the structure was waking up and complaining. Somewhere above them, metal expanded and contracted with a slow groan, like a ship settling in cold water. Lysa hugged her case tighter. "How do you know where to go?" "I do not," Mara said. "I am choosing the kind of places that are useful." A sudden tug lifted Mara's stomach. Gravity dipped, then returned, then dipped again. It was not dramatic, but it was wrong enough to make a careless step turn into a fall. Mara slowed and widened her stance. "The floor is not steady," Mara said. "Keep your feet under you." Lysa swallowed and tried to match Mara's rhythm. "Why is it like this?" "The ring is old," Mara said. "It does not hold itself together the way it used to." They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Mara paused long enough to read it like a problem. She chose the corridor that sloped gently downward, because downward often meant access to utility spaces. Utility spaces meant doors, ladders, and alternate routes. As they moved, a low vibration passed through the wall, faint but steady. Mara did not like it, but she did not stop because stopping was how bad feelings turn into bad outcomes. Lysa spoke again, voice low. "You said you are not handing me over." "I am not," Mara said. "Even if they come inside." Lysa asked. "Especially then," Mara replied. Lysa hesitated, then pushed the next words out as if they hurt. "They did this before," she said. "They made people disappear, and then they called it an accident." Mara did not stop walking. She listened while keeping her body in motion. "What happened?" Mara asked. Lysa swallowed. "My brother worked on a public safety team. He went to a site after the incident, the one they blamed on rebels. He came back quiet, and then he vanished on a transfer run," Lysa said. "A week later the council said his shuttle had a navigation fault." Mara felt anger rise, but she did not let it reach her face. Anger made mistakes, and Mara could not afford mistakes. "Did he tell you anything?" Mara asked. Lysa nodded once. "He said the bodies were wrong. He said the scene looked staged, like someone wanted a picture more than the truth." Lysa's voice cracked. "I'm not brave. I just could not live with it in my head." Mara kept her steps even. "You do not have to be brave," she said. "You have to be alive long enough to finish what you started." Lysa blinked fast. "Why are you helping me?" Mara kept her eyes on the next corner. "Because I have seen what happens when they control the story," she said. "It becomes a cage for everyone." They reached another junction, and Mara checked both directions. She spoke one sentence that kept their movement anchored. "We keep moving toward a relay corridor," Mara said. "Everything else is noise." The air changed before Mara saw the cause. A subtle dryness hit her throat, and her swallow came out tight. Mara touched a wall panel at the next corner. The panel was dead, but the metal around it was colder than the rest, which told Mara the corridor ahead had less circulation. She took it anyway, because it also had a ladder hatch that offered vertical options. Vertical options broke pursuit and changed the rules. They reached the hatch, and Mara crouched to test the latch. It was stiff but not welded shut. "Up or down?" Lysa asked. "Up," Mara said. "Down is usually where the air gets worse." Mara opened the hatch and climbed first because she needed to know what she was pulling Lysa into. The shaft was narrow and the air smelled older, and the rungs bit into her palms through gloves. She climbed to the next level and pushed the upper hatch. It shifted, then stopped. Something clicked in the wall, faint but unmistakable. A mechanical sound, not a voice and not a warning, just a chain of locks responding to motion. Mara froze long enough to understand what that meant. The ring had a security layer that woke up when it sensed movement, and it was built to contain hazards, not help stranded people. "Mara," Lysa called from below. "What is it?" "Climb," Mara said. "Do not stop. Do not look down." Lysa climbed fast, boots scraping the rungs. The shaft trembled slightly, as if the ring itself was adjusting. A second click sounded, deeper, like a bolt sliding into place. Mara tested the hatch again and felt it give a fraction, then catch. Lysa reached the top, breathing hard. Mara grabbed Lysa's wrist and pulled her into a small landing as the hatch finally swung open. They stepped into a corridor with dim emergency lights that pulsed slowly, not bright enough to feel safe, but bright enough to see the next corner. Behind them, the hatch closed by itself with a heavy thud. Lysa turned, eyes wide. "Did it just lock?" "It did," Mara said. "The ring thinks we are a problem." A low hiss started somewhere in the ceiling. Mara felt it on her skin, the faint draft of air being pulled away. "The air is changing," Lysa said, voice tight. "We do not wait to find out how bad," Mara replied. Mara moved them forward at a controlled run, not sprinting because sprinting burned breath. Her boots rang on the metal deck, and the sound made every corner feel closer than it looked. They reached a bulkhead door that should have opened on a touch plate. Mara slapped the plate, and nothing happened. She tried the manual wheel. It turned a quarter rotation and stopped. Lysa looked at her, panic rising. "Is it stuck?" "It is locked," Mara said. "Different problem." Mara heard faint metal tapping, like the ring was speaking in mechanical code. It told her a second door behind them might already be sealing. Mara looked up and spotted a maintenance crawl opening near the ceiling, a narrow gap with a loose grill. It was not elegant, but it was an exit. Up there, Mara said. You go first. Lysa stared at the opening. I cannot fit with this case. Leave the case hanging on the strap, Mara said. Do not drop it. Do not stop. Lysa climbed, awkward but moving. Mara boosted her, then climbed after and hauled herself into the crawl space. The crawl space was tight, and the air inside was warmer than it should have been. Mara did not like it, but it was breathable and it moved them out of the corridor that was being sealed. They crawled on elbows and knees, and Mara kept track of direction by counting turns and listening to the structure's groans. The ring was not a maze if you treated it like a building, because buildings had patterns. Behind them, a heavy slam echoed. A door had closed, cutting off the corridor they had been in. Lysa whispered, voice shaking. If we get stuck in here, we die, right? We did not get stuck, Mara said. Keep moving. They reached a drop hatch and looked down into a utility bay with a grated floor. Mara tested the hatch, then pushed it open. Down, Mara said. We need air and options. They dropped into the bay, and Mara felt relief for half a second when she heard a faint hum from a functioning vent. The air was not fresh, but it was not vanishing. Then she heard something else. A soft, steady ping from the direction of the docking collar, like a signal repeating itself, patient and sure. Mara's jaw tightened. That sound did not belong to the ring. She guided Lysa through the utility bay toward a narrow service passage. She chose it because it had branching ducts and multiple exits, the kind of place where you could lose a pursuer for a few seconds. As they moved, the ping grew clearer, not louder, but more distinct, like a metronome you could not ignore. It pulsed on a steady rhythm that made Mara think of a beacon lock. Lysa heard it too. What does that sound? Mara did not lie. It is a tracker. Lysa's face went pale. On me. I do not know yet, Mara said. But it is close. Mara stopped at a junction where a metal panel hung slightly open. She pulled it aside and leaned in. A small device blinked in the shadow, no bigger than a thumb, with a faint indicator light that flashed in time with the ping. Mara recognized it by the clean design. Ghost tag beacon, Mara said, and kept it playing. It is a tiny locator that repeats where we are. Her stomach tightened, not with fear, but with respect for the enemy. Helix had not just chased them to the ring. They had prepared to mark the environment, so the ring itself became a map. Lysa looked at the device, then at Mara. Can you break it? I can, Mara said, but they may have more than one. Lysa's voice trembled. So hiding does not work? It worked for minutes, Mara said. Minutes are still worth something. Mara pulled a small cutter from her pack. She cut the beacon free and crushed it under her boot until the light went dark. The ping stopped, and the sudden silence felt almost loud. Lysa exhaled like she had been holding her breath for too long. So we are safe? Lysa asked. Not safe, Mara said. Less visible. New sound drifted through the ring, faint at first, then clearer. A distant clank, followed by the soft thud of boots on metal. Mara did not need to see the intruders to understand what it meant. Helix had made the decision to come inside. Mara grabbed Lysa's elbow and pulled her toward the service passage. We leave this bay, she said. We go deeper and we change levels. Where? Lysa asked, keeping pace as her shoes scraped over the grate. Mara pointed down the passage where a faint arrow stripe still clung to the wall. That way leads toward the relay spine. We follow it until it lies, and then we make our own path. They moved, and Mara kept her steps quiet but fast. The ring creaked under them, and the air felt a little thinner again, as if the structure was still deciding which sections to seal. Lysa whispered, What if they plan another one? Then I break it, Mara said. They reached a bend where the passage split. Mara chose the route that dropped into a lower maintenance aisle, because lower aisles had more hatches and more ladders. As they descended, Mara heard the distant boots change pace, faster now. Helix was closing, and the ring no longer felt like shelter. It felt like a trap with moving walls. Mara could not win inside Acheron Ring by running in circles. She had to reach Freeband Relay Corridor and push Lysa's recorder core out of Concordia reach before the ring squeezed shut. She pulled Lysa into a narrow maintenance aisle where the air still moved, then stopped long enough to make the next step real. "We are not hiding anymore," Mara said. "We are going to the relay spine, and we are sending your proof." Lysa's eyes darted toward the darkness behind them. "They are inside the ring. That is why we move with a purpose," Mara said. "If we wander, we die tired." The distant boots from Helix were still there, but Mara heard something else now. A softer sound, more control, like footsteps that did not need to hurry because the people making them expected the prey to fold. Mara did not like that sound. It did not feel like authority, it felt like work. Mara led Lysa to a junction where a wide duct ran along the ceiling and the wall plating was scuffed from old heat events. She chose this area because heat lived here, and heat could be used as cover if you treated it like a tool. Lysa watched Mara scan the walls. "Are you looking for another tracker?" "I'm looking for how they expect us to move," Mara said. Mara saw a vent grill that was warmer than the others. Warm meant recent power, recent airflow, or recent human activity. Mara did not stop to pry it open. She changed the pattern. She guided Lysa into a side corridor that curved around a maintenance loop, then doubled back through a parallel aisle. It was not random. It was a deliberate smear across the ring's thermal map. Lysa frowned. "Why are we going in a circle?" "We are not," Mara said. "We are making our trail ugly." Lysa blinked. "Ugly." Mara kept her voice flat. "Hunters like clean lines. Clean lines make predictions. I want them guessing." They moved through a heat scar zone where the wall panels were darkened and the floor was warped. The air carried a faint chemical bite, old sealant and cooked insulation, and a gentle warmth rose from the deck plating. Mara slowed just enough to keep Lysa steady. "Touch the wall when you turn," Mara said. "The floor dips in spots." Lysa obeyed, breathing through her mouth. "How far to the relay?" "Far," Mara said, "but there is only one direction that matters." They reached another junction, and Mara looked up at a dead camera dome hanging like an empty eye. It told her Concordia had once watched this ring, which meant routes existed that led to communication nodes. Mara chose the corridor marked by a faded arrow stripe. It ran toward a thicker structural spine, and spines usually carried signal conduits. As they moved, Mara heard a faint tap through the metal, like a tool touching a rail. It was too controlled to be the ring settling. Lysa whispered, "Do you hear that?" "I do," Mara said. "Keep moving." They rounded a corner into a wider bay where old cargo rails ran along the floor. A row of dormant work lights hung overhead, dead but still shaped like a ceiling. Mara stopped and pulled Lysa behind a thick column. Wide bays made you visible, and she wanted eyes on the space before she committed. She leaned out and saw the first sign. A small drone crawled along the floor, not flying, not scanning with bright beams, just creeping and listening. It was not a council drone. It was built for quiet. Mara drew a compact cutter from her pack and kept it low. Lysa stared at her hands. "Who are they?" Lysa whispered. Mara watched the drone's pattern. It followed the warmest path and paused where footsteps would have been loudest. "Not Helix," Mara said. "These are contract hunters." A soft thud echoed from the far end of the bay, then another. Two figures stepped into the dim space, helmets matte, lights minimized, weapons kept close to avoid glint. They moved like people who did not need to show power. They only needed to close distance. Mara recognized the style. Ashline Bounty Guild. Lysa's lips parted. "They do not have insignia. They do not need it," Mara said. "They get paid either way." The hunters did not announce themselves. They walked with slow certainty, cutting angles so the bay turned into a funnel. Mara pointed at a low-service trench that ran under the cargo rails. "We go under," she whispered, already moving. "Crawl. Do not stand." Lysa's eyes widened. "Is there room?" "There is enough," Mara said. They dropped into the trench, the air colder down low and smelling like dust and old lubricant. Mara guided Lysa forward on elbows and knees, keeping her shoulder close so Lysa did not panic and bolt upward. Above them, Boots crossed the rails with careful steps. The hunters were not rushing, but they were not guessing either. Mara took one of her breath reserve canisters and rolled it gently down a side channel, letting it clink against metal. The sound was small, but in a quiet ring, small sounds were loud. One hunter paused. The other shifted his weight, listening. Mara used that half-second. She pulled Lysa forward and guided her toward an exit grate on the far side of the trench. They climbed out into a narrow corridor and kept moving, staying tight to the wall. Behind them, a faint click sounded, and Mara did not need to see the device to know what it was. The hunt had escalated from pursuit to containment, and Ashline did not chase to scare you. Ashline chased to finish. The corridor ahead flickered once, then went dark. The sudden change was too clean to be normal decay. Mara stopped and pressed her palm against the wall. The vibration was not structural, it was deliberate, like a tool cutting. Blackout shears, Mara muttered, keeping it simple. Portable cutters that kill lights and doors. Lysa heard the words, but not the meaning. What is that? A way to make us blind, Mara said, and to slow us with locked sections. The darkness was not total. Emergency strips along the floor still glowed faintly, but each strip was weaker than the last, as if power was being shaved away section by section. Mara saw a sign painted directly on the wall, old and faded. It marked a transit tube that ran through a section labeled low-G maintenance. Lysa glanced at it. Low gravity? Unsteady, Mara said, but it is a route they may not want. Lysa's voice trembled. Why would they not want it? Because one mistake sends you floating, Mara said. And in a chase, floating is slow. Mara moved them into the transit tube, a narrow passage that widened into a chamber where the floor was covered in handholds. The air felt different here, as if the ring's spin barely touched this pocket. Mara tested her weight. It shifted, then lightened. Keep one hand on something, Mara said. Do not push off hard. Lysa stepped in and wobbled, eyes wide. I hate this. Good, Mara said. It means you will respect it. Behind them, the corridor lights cut again, plunging the entryway into deeper shadow. The blackout followed them like a tide. They moved hand over hand along a rail, feet brushing the floor. The motion was awkward, but controlled, like climbing a ladder sideways. A faint scrape came from behind. Mara glanced back just long enough to confirm what she feared. A hunter had entered the tube, moving with the same careful discipline. Ashline was willing to fight physics, which meant the contract was rich. Mara kept her voice low for Lysa. Do not look at them. Look at your next grip. Lysa swallowed and nodded, eyes fixed on the rail. A sudden jolt ran through the chamber. The ring shifted its gravity again, a brief flutter that made Lysa's boots lift. Lysa gasped and flailed for a handhold. Mara caught her wrist. Easy, Mara said. Slow. Lysa clung to the rail, breath sharp. They're doing this. Mara listened to the structure and heard the pattern. In the vibration. They are cutting power, she said. The ring is reacting. The hunter behind them waited for the next flutter. When it came, he pushed off with perfect timing and glided closer with almost no sound. Mara spotted a loose panel on the wall, hanging by a single bolt. It was light enough to move in low gravity and heavy enough to become a hazard. Mara reached out, grabbed the panel, and flicked it into the chamber with a controlled shove. The panel floated across the space like a slow blade. The hunter adjusted to avoid it, and that adjustment cost him his perfect line. His shoulder clipped a rail, the small impact rotated him, and he had to grab a handhold to stop his drift. Mara used that moment. She pulled Lysa forward and guided her into the far hatch, where gravity felt more stable. They spilled into the next corridor, dimly lit by weak emergency strips. Mara did not stop. She kept them moving while the hunter recovered behind them. They reached a narrow stairwell that climbed along the ring's inner curve. Mara chose it because stairwells often sat near structural spines, and structural spines often sat near signal conduits. As they climbed, Mara heard a different cadence ahead, slower and heavier, like someone standing still and choosing when to move. The air felt watched, and a shadow on the landing did not shift the way a hunter's shadow would. A voice entered the corridor without warning, smooth and close, as if it had always been there. Mara Vance, the voice said. You move like someone who does not want to die today. Mara stopped on the landing and faced the shadow. When someone spoke your name in a place like this, they wanted you to turn, and turning meant they already had a position. A figure stepped into the faint light. No helmet and no weapon raised, just a coat that looked too clean for this ring. His hands were visible, but his posture was not friendly. Sorting vale. Lisa's breath caught. Who is that? A broker, Mara said, without taking her eyes off him. Soren's smile was thin. That hurts, he said. I prefer problem solver. Mara kept her voice flat. You brought Ashline. I did not bring them, Soren said. Someone bought them, and I happen to know the price. Soren lifted one, hand slightly, as if offering peace. I can make them stop, he said. Hand over Lysa Kade, and you walk out with your record clean. I also wipe the tracking, Soren said. No more ghost tags. No more chase. Lysa stiffened beside Mara. No, Mara did not look at Lysa. She kept her focus on Soren. What do you want besides the witness? Mara asked. Soren's eyes flicked toward Lysa's case for a fraction of a second. I want the silence back, he said. The council wants the silence back. Mara heard the faint scrape of boots below the stairwell. Ashline was closing, and Helix would not be far behind. Mara spoke like she flew, calm and exact. Ashline works on contract, and contracts have terms, she said. Soren tilted his head. They do. If you're offering to cancel, it means you are not the buyer, Mara said. It means you are a middleman trying to flip a witness for extra credit. Soren's smile did not move, but something in his eyes sharpened. Careful, he said. Mara did not stop. If Ashline learns you are not the principal, they will question who pays them if you fail, she said. And hunters do not like uncertainty. Soren's voice stayed smooth, but it hardened at the edges. You think you can turn them on me with a sentence? I think you cannot afford them asking questions, Mara said. A helmet light flickered briefly at the top of the stairwell. A hunter had found another route, cutting off the upper path. Below them, the soft thud of boots grew closer. The lower path was closing too. Mara raised her voice just enough to carry. Ashline, your broker, is offering side deals. Ask him who signs your contract. Soren's head turned sharply. Do not do that. A helmeted figure appeared on the lower landing, weapon low but ready. He did not speak, but his posture changed when he looked at Soren. A second hunter stepped in behind him, eyes on the broker, not on Mara. That shift was all the space Mara needed. Mara leaned toward Lysa, breath tight from the climb. When I move, you move with me, she said. Lysa nodded, jaw tight. Mara pointed at a narrow service door beside the stairwell, half hidden behind a convo box. She had seen it earlier and stored it without thinking. Mara grabbed a handle and yanked. The door gave, revealing a cramped passage that smelled of warm dust and faint ozone. Soren took one step toward her. Mara, do not make this worse. Mara met his eyes once. You already did, she said. She pulled Lysa through the door and slammed it behind them. The lock was old, but the latch held for a moment, and a moment was enough. They ran down the passage, shoes striking metal in a fast, uneven rhythm as the ring creaked around them. Behind them, voices finally rose, not loud arguments, but short, sharp words that sounded like a deal collapsing. Mara did not celebrate. She kept moving toward the relay spine, because proof did not matter until it reached the outside world. Mara ran through the service passage with one outcome that mattered more than pride. She had to reach free band relay corridor before the ring went fully dark and before either hunting team boxed her into a dead end. Lysa kept close, clutching the case like it could stop bullets by will alone. Mara did not tell her to calm down, because calm was not the job right now. The passage opened into a narrow junction that fed into the relay spine, and Mara paused for half a breath. She listened because sound traveled honest in old metal. Boots below, light and disciplined, told her Ashline was still chasing. Heavier steps and a sharper cadence told her Helix was also moving inside the ring now, using the chaos as an excuse to finish the capture. Mara kept her voice low. "We're going to the relay corridor," she said. "You're going to send the proof." Lysa swallowed as they turned. "If I send it, they will come harder?" "They're already coming," Mara said. "This is how we make them pay for it." They took a left turn into a wider conduit hall where old insulation hung like shredded cloth from the ceiling. The emergency strips were weaker here, but Mara could see the relay doors ahead, tall and heavy, built to seal sections when the ring was young. A shadow moved at the far end. Mara slowed because she needed to know who owned the next doorway. Two Helix troopers stepped into view, rifles steady, helmets reflecting the thin light. Behind them, a small projector unit hovered and cast a clean symbol onto the wall. One trooper spoke through a filtered speaker. "Mara Vance, you are ordered to stop and surrender the witness." Mara did not raise her voice. "You're inside a ring that is losing power," she said. "If you want a clean arrest, you are late." The trooper took one step forward. "You are interfering with lawful enforcement." Mara heard a softer sound behind her, a quiet scrape that did not match Helix boots. Ashline had cut in from another corridor, exactly the kind of move contract hunters liked. A hunter appeared on the upper catwalk, helmet mat, weapon low, eyes on Mara and Lysa. He did not speak, but his presence filled the space like pressure. Helix saw him, and the troopers shifted their stance slightly. They did not like sharing hallway with a guild that did not answer to their chain of command. Mara raised her hands, palms open, and took one step toward the center. "You are both here for Lysa Kade," Mara said. "Only one of you gets paid, and only one of you gets to call it legal." The Helix trooper stiffened. "Ashline has no authority." The hunter on the catwalk finally spoke, voice flat. "We have a contract." Mara nodded once. "Contracts do not override Concordia enforcement," she said, looking at Helix. Then she turned slightly toward Ashline. "And enforcement does not pay bounties," Mara said. Helix aimed higher. "Stand down, hunter. This is a lawful seizure." Ashline did not move. "Your law is not our problem." Mara watched their weapons. She did not need a firefight. She needed a wedge. She took a half step back toward a side door that led into relay corridor access. She kept talking because words were steering wheels right now. "If you shoot in here, the ring seals sections," Mara said. "You will lose the witness in a locked corridor, and you will explain that to your bosses." A Helix trooper glanced at the relay doors, and that glance told Mara he believed her. The old ring did not care about their uniforms. Ashline shifted on the catwalk, angling for a line of sight that cut off Mara's retreat. Mara saw the move and took her chance before it was complete. She grabbed Lysa by the sleeve and pulled her into the side door. Mara slammed it and rolled a heavy latch, then ran because the next 10 seconds would decide whether they reached the spine. Behind them, voices rose, sharp and angry, as Helix demanded compliance and Ashline refused. The sound of boots changed, no longer a single pursuit, but two forces trying to control the same corridor. Mara reached the relay access tunnel with a new problem that could kill them without a shot fired. The air was hotter here, and the faint chemical smell clung to the metal. The shuttle had docked too hot, and the docking collar's shared cooling lines had carried that heat into the nearby ring plumbing. That was why this corner of the ring felt like a vented furnace even after they had left the shuttle behind. They burst into a maintenance bay that connected to the relay corridor proper. A wall panel was peeled open, showing insulation foam and old metal ribs. Lysa bent over, hands on her knees. "We are running out of time, aren't we?" "We are," Mara said. "And we're going to buy time with something ugly." Mara scanned the bay and found a red cabinet with emergency blankets, plus a bin of sealant packs and a roll of fiber tape mint for quick pressure fixes. She grabbed the blankets and shoved them into Lysa's arms. "Hold these," Mara said. "Do not drop them." Lysa stared as she caught her breath. "How does that help the shuttle?" "It does not help the shuttle," Mara said. "It helps us." Mara yanked a hatch open and crawled into a narrow crawl space that ran along the relay corridor wall. The crawl space was warm because a coolant line ran through it, and that line was already struggling. Mara found the coolant line where it narrowed. A cracked coupling leaked a thin mist that evaporated almost on contact. Mara took one sealant pack and pressed it over the crack, then wrapped the coupling with fiber tape. She did not waste motion, and she did not explain more than necessary. Lysa crouched at the hatch, watching. "Will that hold?" "It will hold long enough," Mara said. Mara then did the part that hurt. She pulled out her own spare cooling canister, the one she had been saving as a personal margin of survival, and clipped it into the line as a bypass. Lysa's voice caught. "That was yours." Mara nodded once. "Now it is ours." The canister hissed, and the line temperature eased slightly. The heat did not vanish, but it slowed like a fire denied oxygen. Mara climbed out and pushed the hatch shut. She wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her hand and forced her breathing steady. Lysa held the blankets tighter. "What did it cost you?" "It cost me my last clean option," Mara said. "If we fail, I do not have a backup." Mara did not let the moment turn soft. "Move," she said. "We have a narrow window." They crossed into the relay corridor, and Mara immediately saw how fragile it was. The lights were on but dim, and the floor strips flickered like a tired heartbeat. A distant thump echoed behind them, followed by a sharp shout. Helix and Ashline had collided again, and the ring carried every sound like gossip. Mara guided Lysa toward the relay console at the far end. It was a simple station with a slot for physical media, built for the era when people still believed in hard backups. Mara pointed. "That is where you send it." Lysa nodded, and for the first time her fear looked like focus. She moved faster, not braver, just committed. Mara stood between Lysa and the corridor entrance. She had to hold space long enough for the transmission to leave the ring, because once the data was out, the hunt would lose its reason. Lysa set the case on the console with shaking hands and opened it. Inside was a recorder core, small, dense, and marked by scratches like it had been carried through hell. Lysa looked up. "What if they cut the signal?" "They will try," Mara said. "That is why you do it now." Lysa slid the recorder core into the slot. The console displayed a line that read, "External relay window detected." Another line followed that read, "Free band path available." Lysa blinked at the words. "Free band drop. It is a one-way push into a relay network that Concordia cannot fully lock," Mara said. "Once it is out, anyone can copy it." "Do it now," Mara said. "The lights can die any minute." Lysa swallowed. "Okay." Her fingers hovered, then pressed the transmit control. The console displayed a line that read, "Packet shaping in progress." It displayed a line that read, "Handoff initiated." Mara heard boots again, close now. She saw shadows at the far end, and her body went cold in the useful way that sharpened decisions. A Helix trooper stepped into the corridor first, rifle raised, voice loud with forced authority. "Stop transmission. This is a lawful seizure." An Ashline hunter appeared a half-second later, weapon angled toward Helix rather than toward Mara. "Move aside. Contract target." Mara did not shoot. She did not need to. "If you fire in this corridor, you break the relay spine," Mara said. "Then nobody gets a witness." Helix hesitated, because Helix had regulations in their bones. Ashline did not, but Ashline understood payment, and broken relays meant delayed payment and messy cleanup. The Helix trooper aimed at Mara again. "Mara Vance, step away from the witness." "You were chasing her under a legal excuse," Mara said. "That excuse dies the second her proof goes public." The Ashline hunter's helmet turned slightly. "What proof?" Lysa's voice shook but stayed clear. "The manufacture massacre," she said. Helix snapped. "Do not say that." Lysa kept going, one sentence at a time. "They called it a riot," she said. "It was staged. People were pushed into it so Concordia could sell a peace plan," Lysa said. Helix took one step forward, anger breaking through the professional mask. "You are spreading disinformation." Mara watched the Helix trooper's hands and saw the smallest tremor. He was not sure anymore. The console chimed softly. It displayed a line that read, "Handoff complete." A second line followed that read, "Mirrors active." Mara let out one control breath. The data was out. The corridor changed instantly, not because of lights or alarms, but because motives shifted. Helix was no longer enforcing a clean capture, Helix was now holding a political grenade. Ashline sensed it too. The hunter's weapon dipped slightly, not in mercy, but in calculation. A new voice came through the Helix trooper speaker, clipped and urgent. Interdiction wing, disengage. Hold position. Await revised mandate. Helix froze, and Mara heard what it meant. The chain of command had just lost the confidence to keep forcing the issue in a place that could become public. The Ashline hunter spoke, low and cold. Our contract just changed. It probably vanished, Mara said. A Helix trooper lowered his rifle fraction. You do not understand what you have done. I understand exactly what I did, Mara said. Lysa stepped back from the console, breathing hard, as if she had just run a mile. Her eyes met Mara's. In the gratitude, there was fierce, not soft. Thank you, Lysa said. Mara kept her voice steady. Stay behind me, she said. They can still try something stupid. Ashline did not attack. They backed away with the same silent discipline they had arrived with. Helix did not attack either. They retreated, not because they forgave Mara, but because the legal excuse had been ripped away in front of their eyes. Mara held her ground until the corridor was empty again. Then she turned to Lysa. We leave, Mara said. Now. Mara led Lysa out through the far end of the relay corridor and into a service ladder bay that climbed toward an emergency egress dock. They climbed in silence because breath was still a resource and silence was still safer than celebration. At the top, they reached a small dock where an old utility shuttle sat tethered, paint chipped, thrusters patched with mismatched panels. It looked like something nobody would steal, which was exactly why it was still here. Lysa stared at it. Will it fly? It will fly enough, Mara said. Enough is a beautiful word today. Mara worked the manual clamps and pulled the tether free. She did not waste time on smooth procedure. She used the kind of movements that came from doing hard things in bad places. Lysa climbed into the passenger seat and strapped in. Her hands shook again, but her eyes were clearer now, as if the transmission had taken weight off her chest. Mara settled into the pilot position and checked basic power. The shuttle responded with a low hum, like it had been waiting for a reason. Lysa looked at Mara. What happens to me now? Mara kept her eyes on the forward window where the ring's battered curve filled the view. Now you become hard to erase, Mara said. Lysa gave a small, strained laugh. That does not sound safe. It is safer than being quiet, Mara said. They pushed out from the dock and drifted into the open. The stars beyond Acheron Ring were sharp and indifferent, and Mara felt the ring's shadow fall away as the shuttle cleared the structure. A message pinged on the shuttle's console, short and clean. The console displayed a line that read, Concordia Enforcement Notice Rescinded Pending Review. Lysa exhaled, long and shaky. So, they cannot hunt us anymore. They can, Mara said, but now they have to explain why. Lysa stared out at the dark. I did not think anyone would choose me over their own safety. Mara kept her tone flat. I did not choose you, she said. I chose the outcome. Lysa looked hurt for a second. Then she understood, and that understanding was its own kind of comfort. And the outcome was worth it. Mara nodded once. It had to be. The utility shuttle's thrusters pushed gently, and Acheron Ring shrank behind them. Mara did not look back long, because looking back was how people missed the next threat. A second ping came in, not from Concordia channels. It was a free band relay echo, a public copy acknowledgement. The console displayed a line that read, Mirror Count Rising. Then it displayed another line that read, Source Protected by Crowd. Lysa whispered, They're sharing it. They are, Mara said. For a few seconds, Mara let herself feel something close to relief, the kind that lasted only until the next problem arrived. Then the shuttle's receiver caught a new signal, faint, irregular, and nothing like Helix channels. It did not carry a name or a badge, only a pattern that repeated like a heartbeat in the dark. Lysa turned toward Mara. Do you know what that is? Mara listened, and her jaw tightened. No, she said, but it knows how to find us. Mara did not celebrate. She watched the stars steady in the windshield as the utility shuttle slipped away from Acheron Ring. Lysa finally let her shoulders drop, just a little. The hunt had not ended because the world turned kind, It ended because the truth had become too expensive to deny. Mara kept one hand on the controls and one eye on the dark, because survival never hands you a clean finish. The new signal still pulsed in the receiver, quiet and patient, like it had been waiting long before either of them decided to run. She did not need to know its name yet. She only needed to know what it meant. Somebody out there had learned how to follow her, even when every law and every hunter had failed. And whatever came next would not ask for permission. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this world is worth returning to. Share it with someone who loves space survival, high-stakes chases, and hard choices that actually matter. That simple share helps this channel more than you think. And if you want more long-form science fiction like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next episode. New stories are coming, and the signal Mara heard is only the beginning.